Italian mobster opens organized crime themed burger joint and he charges prosecutors double. Hey everybody, welcome to another Sit Down with Michael Franzese. Hope everybody's doing well. Everybody, I'm sorry, something just happened very funny. I had to laugh about it. But anyway, hope everybody's doing well. Everything is very good, very blessed on this end. And as always, we give God all the praise, honor, and glory for that. It's good when we're in a good mood, right? I'm in a good mood today. So anyway, I got something really crazy today. It was actually something funny. It's mob related and funny, but I think you'll enjoy it. For all you that love the mob stories, this is a good one. I'm going to be reading. You know, I go through a lot of, news articles to see if there's anything interesting that we should talk about. And I think this is a funny one. It's going to entertain you a little bit, and I always give my perspective on it and so on and so forth. Again, before we get into it, I know I keep telling you, but people keep asking me. I want you to know I don't want you to miss it if you're in the area. Warren, Ohio on September 9th at the Robbins Theater. I will be appearing for my dear friend, former champ, Ray Boom Boom Mancini. He's doing a big fundraiser. Come, we're going to have a great evening that night. I promise you that. September 23rd, Caesars in Atlantic City. You want to know about the Jersey mob and other related stuff around the country, also about my life. We're going to have a great time. It's always a great show. And yes, we do a VIP section. We do book signings, Q&A, ask me anything that you want. We have a great time. And then on September 28th at the Beacon Theater in New York City, myself, Mike Tyson, champ Mike Tyson, and Chaz Palminteri, my dear friend, now you can't leave. We're all going to be on the stage together. 3 New York guys, 2 from Brooklyn, 1 from the Bronx. We all got a great story to tell and share with you. It's going to be a great evening. Get your tickets. They're going fast. And believe me, it's going to sell out. They're not going to last. So those 3 dates coming up. Sounds great. Today, this is a story about, let me read you the headline. Italian mobster opens organized crime themed burger joint, charges prosecutors double for his hamburgers. And this happened in Italy, but it's a great story. I'm going to read it. You know, it's funny. The first business that I had, in the food business that I had, was called Sonny's Pizza. I had a pizza parlor out in Long Island. I called it Sonny's after my dad. And I didn't like when the police came in, so because back then I didn't like the police. I like, law enforcement now. I have many friends in law enforcement, so don't want to give the wrong impression. But, it's funny, whenever an Italian guy or a mob-related guy opens up a place, so many stories about that. Maybe I'll get in. Friends of mine that opened up places, in New York and even out here in California. We'll talk about it. But let me read you this story. I think you'll enjoy it. Italian mobster opens organized crime-themed burger joint and he charges prosecutors double. Salvatore Buzzy says he got the idea for the restaurant during his last prison stint. You're laying there on your bunk. What am I going to do when I get out? You're thinking about it. I remember when I was in the hole, I was thinking, what am I going to do? All you do is think. You think, you read, you listen to a Sony Walkman. You young kids don't know what that is in the digital world, but the old timers, we do. And you think what you're going to do when you get out, if you're going to get out. Well, I did, and so we think about what we're going to do. A new burger joint opened in the suburbs of Rome today, and this is last year, and under normal circumstances, that wouldn't be particularly newsworthy. But this clearly isn't normal circumstances since the owner of, I think it's Buzzy's Burgers, is a convicted murderer, drug trafficker, and well-connected Italian mobster. Okay, does that make the hamburger any different? I don't know. Salvatore Buzzy told an Italian news outlet that the idea for his restaurant came to him during his most recent stint in prison, and his release is still being contested by prosecutors. He may be back in jail now. Instead of trying to distance himself from his criminal past, Buzzy is clearly revealing it. According to Corriere della Sera, the menu at Buzzy's Burgers is filled with references to the mafia and to other criminals. And there's a lot of places, a lot of restaurants that use names, to describe their food. A lot of that happened in New York, Chicago, the same thing, Vegas for sure. Listen, mob guys, they make headlines, let's face it. They make movies about us and all that kind of stuff. So, people see that, they get interested in it. There are sandwiches named for the organized crime drama Futurama's Gomorrah. People keep telling me to watch that show and do some reviews on it. I got to do that. You know, I got to watch Gomorrah. I'm hearing nothing but good stuff about it. Anybody seen it? If you saw it and you think I should watch it, let me know in the comments. And Sabura, and the latter is loosely based on the Mafia Capitale investigation that sent Buzzy back to jail, while the hot dogs, hamburgers, and even the salads are named after various bosses and members of the Banda della Magliana criminal organization. Interesting. The pricing structure also varies based upon how Buzzy feels about certain professions. In this club, everyone pays, friends, relatives, and acquaintances, he said. But prosecutors pay double, and judges pay triple. I don't think that's a great idea, I'll be honest with you, especially when his release is being contested. You know, the cops come in normally, we would take care of them because they would watch our place and make sure that, you know, nobody's sniffing around, no robberies or anything else. Good business. You know, when the cops come in, I had many restaurants, we would always either charge them half or give them something on the house. It wasn't a big deal. I know there's a scene in Casino when the Joe Pesci character and his brother had a restaurant, and some of the cops came in, and his brother, you remember, was preparing a sandwich and he spit on it. We didn't do things like that. That was just, you know, I don't like that, honestly. Because again, you know, local police, they take care of your place, they watch out, whatever. It's not a good idea, you know, to charge them double because they remember stuff like that. Unsurprisingly, not everyone is delighted about Buzzy's new venture. Luigi Ciotti, a priest who founded the anti-mafia organization Libera, compared it to the vulgar, offensive, and unacceptable chain of Spanish restaurants called La Mafia. I'm not familiar with that chain, but if that's the name of the restaurant, what's a big deal? Listen, you know, the word brings people to the platform. You know, listen, when I first started speaking and I would go out to the Midwest, nobody knew who I was. I had a reputation back in New York, maybe California, Florida, a little bit, but the Midwest, nobody knew Michael Franzese. And they used to advertise that the Mafia guy was coming and the place would be standing room only. So look, you know, it brings people in the door. There's no question. I can, you know, attest to that over the past 25 years. Okay, now I'm known. But in the beginning, no, you know, it brings people in the door. So if you want to use a name that brings people in the door, what's wrong with that? You know, you got to loosen up a little bit. La Mafia se sienta a la mesa. The Mafia sits at the table. Opened its first restaurant in Spain in 2000. And within a decade, several dozen of the restaurants were scattered throughout the country. Why? Popular. They want that. The restaurants all featured framed photos from The Godfather and references to real and imaginary Mafia dons. That did not go over well in Italy, where politicians filed formal complaints with the European Commission urging it to close the gravely offensive restaurants because they had the name Mafia. I don't know. You know, listen, I don't see anything wrong with that. You know, if you want to name something after people that were in the news or made headlines or might have been in the movies, what's wrong with that? You're not glamorizing it. You're not telling them to be that person. It's a conversation piece. It brings people in the door. They're not criminal organizations when they're restaurants. There's nothing wrong with that. You know, I'm sorry, I disagree with that. Hey, they had an article in Forbes magazine about me and my partner because we have the restaurant, the pizza place is called Slices, you know, and it was a big story in Forbes. And yeah, it brought people in the door because of my background. What's wrong with that? You know, people got to loosen up a little bit. They get a little bit too serious about these things. In 2016, the European Union's Office for Intellectual Property decided that the changed name and theme were contrary to accepted principles of morality and said that the restaurant should have to change its name. They made the restaurants in Spain change the name. That could be very detrimental to the business. 2 years later, the European Union's General Court rejected its appeal to keep the trademark for the name, ruling that it was likely to shock or offend the families of Mafia victims. Now, let me give that some thought. So if you have a restaurant that has items on the menu that are named after mob guys, you got the Al Capone sandwich or the Fat Tony meatball, is that going to be offensive to victims? Well, who are the victims, you know? I think that's taken it a step too far. I'm sorry, that's how I feel. Some of you might disagree, you know, you can comment about it, but if you're naming, you know, an item on a menu after a guy that's had notoriety, if you have the John Gotti pizza, is something so terrible about that? Or the victims, the alleged victims, if you know who the victims are of John Gotti, are going to complain about it? I don't know. I think that's a step too far, especially here in the United States. You know, we live in a country where we have freedom of speech. I think that's a step too far. And I don't think anybody means to be offensive, certainly, by naming, you know, a food item after somebody that has a big name. All that hasn't slowed La Mafia down, though. The restaurants can still be found from A Corona to Zaragoza. I guess these are places in Spain. And maybe Buzzy's Burgers knows what it can get away with after all. So, but I will say this, Mr. Buzzy, if you're out, you know, because I know this was a while back and they were trying to put you back in prison, I don't think it's a good idea to charge the prosecutors double and charge the judges triple. Because if you're going to maintain a life of crime and you're going back in front of a judge that you charge triple, well, he may just give you the triple the sentence that you would have gotten if you get convicted. So I wouldn't do that. And as far as law enforcement, you know, listen, you got to understand something. They did their job. You know, in most cases, they did their job. And if they locked us up, they got all the laws in their favor. And, you know, what could you do? That's their job. Their job was to come after us, you know, and I say this all the time, but interesting, though. So, people, if you ever want to open up a restaurant, you want to use my name, you know, on a hamburger, I wouldn't mind that at all, really. And if it helps you sell more burgers, great. And if it doesn't, then get my name off there because that's not good for business. Actually, my wife just reminded me there is a sandwich, the Franzese sandwich, named after me. That's right. There is a sandwich named after me. I got to find out how well it's doing. But anyway, that's it. It was a kind of a light story. And, you know, anytime I see something like this that I think is going to be of interest to you, we'll let it go. Hey, look, you know what? There's a lot of serious stuff going on in the world. And yes, I want to address it because it matters to me. But you got to loosen it up every once in a while. Also, you know, I know a lot of you jump on here on YouTube, you know, to take your mind off some of the things that are going on. I get it, you know, I really do. And so please, you know, stay with me if I'm talking about some issues. Again, you know, unfortunately, it is political because issues, okay, are affected by the politics that rule them. You know, that by the agenda of the politicians in office. And we have to talk about it because people, I think America's in trouble. And I want to bring it to your attention. You know, I was in church and my pastor, I happen to love, Pastor Greg Laurie, you know, he delivered a message that really hit home, something that I've known over the years anyhow, because you know this as a Christian. But he said, you know, the sin of omission is just as serious or sinful as the sin of commission. Meaning if you know that something is going wrong and you have a platform and a voice and you can express your opinion to make people aware of it, to enlighten them, to help them maybe, you have to do that. You have to speak up, you know, otherwise you're committing a sin of omission by just sitting there and saying, none of my business. I'm not going to inform anybody. So that's what I try to do. And hopefully I'm not being offensive to people. You know, the division in this country now is terrible. And I really, really hold accountable the people on the top. From Trump to Pelosi to Biden to Obama to all of them. They're the ones that have divided this country. Okay? It's not the people that are working every day, breaking their backs, trying to put food on their table, doing the right thing. It's the people on the top that have caused the division in this country, you know, and I want to see it stop. I really do. So hopefully my voice contributes to that going away and bringing us together because that's what it's all about. How do I always leave you? Same way. Be safe, be healthy. Got to do that. And yes, God bless all of you. I really do mean that. Yes, I'll see you next time.